September 15, 2015 meeting of the Sayreville Board of Education. Mr. Board Secretary, this meeting been advertised according to the Open Public Meeting Act.
Yes, it has, Mr. McEnone.
Do we stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mr. Balka.
Here.
Mrs. Bacco.
Here.
Mrs. Bloom.
Here.
Mr. Brzezinski.
Here.
Mr. Sayak.
Here.
Mrs. DePinto.
Here.
Mrs. Trapp.
Here.
Mr. Walsh.
Here.
Mr. McEnone.
President.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we retire into executive session.
Any second?
Second.
Read the resolution, please.
Whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education, Borough of Sayreville, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey as follows. The public shall be excluded from discussion of any action upon the hereinafter specified subject matter. General nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Personnel, including but not limited to agenda items, attorney-client privilege, various legal issues associated with the Sayreville War Memorial High School football program and student discipline, and a notice of claim, and then negotiations, SEA grievance number 2015-50, and Sayreville Education Association contract 7116 through 6/30/19. Mr. Balka?
Yes.
Mrs. Bacco?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Sayak?
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto?
Yes.
Mrs. Trapp?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. McEnone?
Yes. September 15, 2015 meeting of the Sayreville Board of Education. Everybody please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Board Secretary, this meeting been advertised according to the Open Public Meeting Act.
Yes, it has, Mr.
Roll
McEnone.
call, please.
Mr. Balka?
Here.
Mrs. Bacco?
Here.
Mrs. Bloom?
Here.
Mr. Brzezinski?
Here.
Mr. Sayak?
Here.
Mrs. DePinto?
Here.
Mrs. Trapp?
Here.
Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Mr. McEnone?
I am present. Can you please synopsize the executive session?
In executive this evening, the board, under personnel, including but not limited to agenda items, under attorney-client privilege, one item, various legal issues associated with the Sayreville War Memorial High School football program and student discipline, and another item was notice of claim. Under negotiations, Sayreville Education Association grievance number 2015-50, and the Sayreville Education Association contract for 7/116 through 6/30/19.
Our student council representative, Christopher Bruce. Go ahead. Yep.
Hello.
Just some things going on in the school now. The student council freshman elections are coming up, so the new freshmen will be picked into student council. Also, Friday is the UBU assembly, which promotes being yourself and getting rid of stereotypes in high school. Homecoming and pep rally will be October 16th, so should be a good turnout for that. Still getting used to that 7:15 start time. It's been tough. They're setting up an email for me, hopefully soon, so I'll be able to get, requests, things that people want to bring up. But so far, I've had people talk to me about the parking passes that were recently given out. A lot of people think there should be eligibility to be placed in the lottery based on demerits and school involvement, and also whether you're involved in athletics. The football team had our first game last Friday and got the win against JP Stevens. Nice. That's all I got.
Chris, you mentioned pep rally October 16th, but homecoming is the 30th, correct?
I had a meeting with Ms. Mendon today, and she said that they were both on the 16th.
Okay, so homecoming was moved to 16th?
I believe, unless she mixed it.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
One question. Mr. Bruce, there are currently no requirements for the parking pass lottery?
No, it's just a randomized lottery.
Okay. We'd never heard that idea before. I think it's an innovative proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, Chris, I know you got to get back to your
job, thank
SAT
you.
prep class. So, yes,
No, I said good job, thank you.
Thank you.
thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, we have some presentations.
Yes, I do, Mr. McEnroe. First of all, is Mr. Brown here today? Or anybody from the high school? You guys are starting them at 7:15? 7:30, right? Okay, good. Thank you. Today is a very, very special evening. One of my favorite directors of all time is Woody Allen, and Woody Allen says 90% of life is just showing up. And when you talk about education, 150% of education is having our incredible teachers, our incredible paraprofessionals, and of course, all of our incredible support staff members in school doing their jobs to the best of their ability, because they recognize that everything and anything they do will directly or indirectly impact the outcomes for all of our students. And tonight, we have a very special occasion in which we honor the extremely committed and dedicated professionals here in Sayreville for performing outstandingly every single day of the school year, having perfect attendance. So without any further delay, I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Shediak and Mrs. DePinto, who will join together in recognizing all of our incredible staff members that achieved perfect attendance last year.
Well, first of all, I'd like to again say congratulations to all of those who received perfect attendance during the 2014-15 school year. Okay, the first group we will honor are those with 1 year of perfect attendance. Lorianne Dobrinsky. Rachel Dunn. Jesse Evans. Michelle Gentile. Andrew Hoffren. Maura Johnson. Jessica Kelly. Jarrett Lampkin. Congratulations, Jarrett. Amy Lembo. Joseph O'Donnell. Congratulations. Kerry O'Neill Fleshner. Walter Paban. Tamika Reese. Andrew Rice. Right. It's an obstacle course. Maureen Rochford. Dale Rubino. And also for first one-year perfect attendance, the following people should be recognized. They were unable to attend tonight. Robert Avronites, Kathy Barish, Regina Braun, Lauren Bonepan, Terry Dahl, Nina DeLanobis, Gina Duda, Kathleen Elia, Mary Gold, Ashley Hensley, Deborah Hessner, Jeffrey Miolenko, Elaine Miles, Olga Santiago, Deborah Sheldon, Daniel Toy, and Nadine Vigalotti. All for 1 year. Two years perfect attendance. Teresa Boskovsky, Timothy Byrne, Paul Deloya, Kaylee Giovenko, Joseph Kaczynski, Jean Scudney, also for 2 years of perfect attendance, the following people were unable to attend tonight. Erin Bottomley, Karen Havens, Thomas Law, Stephen Logan, James Parse, Robin Reed, and Laura Remo. Here's perfect attendance. Liliana Marcoux, Edward McCann, also for 3 years of perfect attendance, Susan Henry and Linda Kudrak were unable to attend tonight. Four years perfect attendance, Patsy Palmer.
Four years perfect attendance, Marilyn Shediak.
And also 4 years, who's unable to attend. 5 years perfect attendance, Amanda Kutcher. Okay, 5 years Recipients who were unable to attend tonight, Ronald Torres and Luigi Ventri. Six years, James Coleman was unable to attend. Seven years, Nancy Moore. And 8 years perfect attendance, Emilio DeAndrea. Once again, congratulations to all. We really appreciate all you do.
As everyone knows, several years ago, Governor Christie signed into law the anti-bullying statute. And as part of that statute, annually, our safety committees at each school have to complete what's called a harassment, intimidation, and bullying self-assessment. Ms. Reese, our Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Operations, and Compliance, is going to share with you now in a presentation our self-assessment scores for 2014-2015. Ms. Reese?
Just that one's on. You want to use that one?
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to a fantastic school year. Again, congratulations to all of those who had perfect attendance, including me. Okay, here we go. Background. The Commissioner of Education is required to grade each public school district's effort to implement the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act. Each school, through its school safety team, is required to evaluate its implementation of the ABR from July 1st, 2014 through June 30th, 2015 by using a self-assessment. The self-assessment tool includes 8 core elements which address all of the ABR requirements for schools. The school safety teams must assign a rating for each indicator based on the criteria and available documentation. Core Element 1. HIB programs, approaches, or initiatives. The school annually established HIB programs, approaches, or other initiatives. So let me just stop the way it is. They have these core elements, and each school has to give a 0, a 1, 2, or 3 to rate themselves. Did we establish the HIB program? Okay, so that's how we get the score. The school annually implemented and documented HIB programs. The school annually assessed HIB programs, approaches, or other initiatives. The school's HIB programs are designed to create school-wide conditions to prevent and address HIB. The school safety team identified school climate and school. So they go through, they rate it, and they get a score for core element 1. Core element 2. Training on the BOE approved HIB policy. School employees, contracted service providers, and volunteers were provided training on the HIB policy. The HIB policy training included instruction on preventing HIB on the basis of protected categories enumerated in the ABR and other distinguishing characteristics that may incite incidents of discrimination or HIB. The HIB policy was discussed with students in accordance with the district's process for these discussions. Core element 3, I'm going to kind of just skim over it, not read it word for word, to just give the crux of it. For the other staff instruction and training programs, each teaching staff member completed at least 2 hours of instruction in suicide prevention that included information on HIB in each 5-year period. Each teaching staff member had 2 hours of instruction on HIB prevention period. The school anti-bullying specialist was given time during the school day to it. The members of the school safety team were provided with professional development and effective practices of successful school climate or programs. And each building leaders have school
school building leaders have received information on the prevention of HIV as part of their training on issues in school ethics, school law, and governance. Core Element 5, HIB personnel. The principal appointed a school anti-bullying specialist. The ABS met at least 2 times per year with the district anti-bullying coordinator. The school safety team met at least 2 times per school year to develop, foster, and maintain a positive school climate. Core Element 6, school-level HEB incident reporting procedure. The school implemented the district's procedures for reporting HIB that includes all required elements. The school implemented the district's procedure for reporting new information. Core Element 7, HIB investigation. The school followed the HIB, which provides for notification to parents, completion of the investigation within 10 school days, on the findings, and results of the investigation reported to the chief school administrator within 2 days after completion of the investigation. And Core Element 8, HIB reporting. The school has a procedure for ensuring that staff member reports include the required information for all incidents of violence, vandalism, and HIB, and the official grades received from the NJDOE for the self-assessment from the previous reporting period are posted on the homepage of the school's website. So those are all of the elements that everyone goes through and they score. And what I have here on this slide, is a comparison from last year to this year. These are the scores the total scores that each school came up with. You can see the total possible points are 78. So you can see Arlith was 64, 13, 14, 67, 14, 15. Eisenhower, 54, 13, 14, 62, 14, 15. High school, 68, 13, 14, 70, 14, 50. Middle school, 55, 13, 14, 71, 14, 15. SUES, 56, 13, 14, 59, 14, 15. Truman, 63, 13, 14, 64, 14, 15. Wilson, 64, 13, 14, and 68, 14, 15. After the assessment, we certify it and it's submitted to the Department of Education. They determine, based on other documentation that we submit, what the overall district score is, and then we will report out on that as well. The key thing with this is that as we look at the score, what it does is as we look at all the components, we see areas as a school or a district that we may need to do additional things with, additional training or different types of programs, and areas that we've improved in from one year to the next. So that's what the whole purpose of the process is, and I thank you very much for your time.
While it is the beginning of the school year, believe it or not, we are fast approaching budget time. In fact, if you know Mr. DeAndrea, he started thinking about the 2016-17 budget sometime in April. But here to present the 2016-17 budget development calendar, here's Mr. DeAndrea.
As we've done in the past, we're going to change some things up, based upon some conversation we've had. We're going to do things slightly different as far as presentations, but on November 17th, we'll do the State of the Schools. December 1st will be the first kickoff, where the superintendent, Dr. Lively, will do his overview, buildings and grounds, capital projects presentation. December 4th, the administrators and directors will be required to submit their budget through an online process. We no longer send paper back and forth. Everything is live. As soon as they submit it, I get to see it, Dr. Labby gets to see it, so it's a live moving document that we get to look at. December 7th, we'll present to the Finance and Infrastructure Committee. December 15th, you'll see a presentation from the Food Service and a submission of the preliminary budget to the full Board of Education. January 19th, I'll probably start the kickoff of everything related to education in the district. You'll see curriculum and instruction and technology. February 2nd, the elementary, middle, and high school budgets all together. The 16th, transportation, athletics, and co-curricular. March 1st, special education and personnel. March 15th, Board of Education approval of preliminary budget. March 18th, submission of the preliminary budget. And from March 15th down, those dates could change based on what information we get from the state. April 22nd, county DOE. May 3rd, the public hearing. May 6th, submission of the adopted budget. And May 13th, submission of the tax certification. As Dr. Labby said, it's only September, and we're already have to get on board for what we got to do July of 16 through June of 17. So it always starts 18 months ahead of time, but at least this gives everyone an indication of what to expect in the near future.
Secretary, in the future, as a matter of practice, anything we put up there, let's have hard copies of it over here. I know there's an initiative to reduce the amount of paperwork in the district. I know we posted on our website. Anything that's up there, we need to have copies of it here.
My apologies, I forgot to
No
run
apologies,
along.
just make sure that I know it's an administrative issue, but let's make sure we have copies of it. What's next? Okay, correspondence. Everybody should receive the monthly technology work order and maintenance work order reports. Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? If not, everybody should also receive the minutes, plus there was a latter date change to it that came out today for the August 18th, December 1st minutes. Anybody have any questions, comments, deletions, additions to the minutes?
Mr. McEnone, under correspondence, I'd just like to express my thanks to Mr. Pantiliano and his staff for the work in getting the Matt Wellness scoreboard up, and also, in particular, the work on fixing our drainage project at the top of the stadium. That's a project that was originally budgeted for in 1994 for $292,000. And it was done for substantially less than $292,000 in 2015. So that's really a credit to Mr. Pantiliano and his team. And from what I understand, it is draining exceptionally well up there. There's no more puddles. With that being said, Mr. McEnone, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the August 18th and September 1 meetings.
Need a second? Second. Roll call vote.
Mr. Boucher.
Yes.
Mrs. Becker.
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom.
Yes, but I need to abstain on the 18th since I was not present.
Abstain on the 18th.
August 18th. The minutes.
Mr. Brzezinski.
Yes.
Mr. Sayak.
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto.
Yes.
Mrs. Stratt.
August 18th, yes, and September 1, I need to abstain, I wasn't here.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Mr. McEnroe.
Yep. Dr. Labby, take us through your report, please.
No. Okay, Board of Education members, if I can direct your attention to Vision 2030, Finance and Infrastructure. Beginning with number 13, we're asking you to approve the salary grant offsets for the No Child Left Behind application. That's from July 1st, 2015 through June 30th, 2016. You can find that on pages 3 and 4. Number 14, we're asking you to approve the authorization and submission of an application to the county superintendent for the use of substandard education spaces. We actually forgot one from the last meeting, so we had to add that one. That is for the Wilson School. You can find that on page 4. Number 15, we're asking you to approve and authorize the business administrator to advertise for a bid for a bus route. You can find that on page 4 as well. 16 through 25, we're asking you to approve several building permits. Many of those are in accordance with our facility usage fee schedule. You can find those on pages 4 and 5. Numbers 27 through 28, we're asking you to approve some negotiated joint transportation contracts for the 2015-16 school year on page 6. And number 29, we're asking you to approve 2 2015-16 out-of-district educational placements, tuition contracts for 2 students with disabilities, an auditory processing evaluation, and some paraprofessional and additional related services for children with disabilities who are being educated in out-of-district educational placements. You can find that on pages 6 and 7. Any questions on finance and infrastructure?
I have a question.
Mrs. Bacco?
For the transfers, for the purchase services and miscellaneous purchase services, they're both going up considerably. Is that stuff we're buying that wasn't budgeted, or do you know what it was for?
If 11000216 and 11000217 are both related to special education services that are being provided. What they've done is placed encumbrances.
No. It's 219, 11000219.
And I apologize, that's also special services.
Okay, all right.
All of those items are related to special services.
Okay, so do you know what it is particularly?
As we've approved over the last few meetings, all of the various contracts for professional services, these are those encumbrances now for the year. Will we expend those amounts? That's undetermined at this point in time, so it's an estimate. So you encumber the full funds based on what the board has approved.
So were these contracts that we didn't anticipate during budget season, or are we just moving it from one account to another?
I didn't look at them that closely to determine if they were budgeted or not. I just know that these were the contracts that were submitted for approval to provide the services necessary for special education students.
And I can add that most of them were. We do have several that we did not anticipate. Sometimes those things arise during individualized education program meetings.
Okay, and for number 25, the camp, is that a camp we're sponsoring?
Yes, one of our teachers, along with the student, has secured a grant to provide an IT, as it says, an IT camp specifically for the students. So it is one through the school district. It came through a $3,000 grant.
Anybody else? Mr. Sang?
Two things. First of all, on the grant, that would be a great thing for the high school to highlight under district highlights. Maybe next month we can recognize the student for procuring the grant.
It's a great idea.
And then on the bills list, I need to abstain on Premier Printing.
Anybody else?
Yep, Mike.
Dan?
Yep, on the bill list, check number 134829, I'm going to abstain.
Okay, I apologize.
Yeah, okay, tell me when you're ready.
What's the number?
134829.
434829?
134829. And then on the cafeteria bill list, 8516, I'm going to vote no.
Okay, hold on. Cafeteria,
It's A for number 4,
and no to number,
8516.
and you're abstaining on number 8.
Number 8, yep.
Mr. McEnroe, can I just ask why you're voting no on the cafeteria bill list?
That's the
Or that,
other
yeah,
one.
the one item.
That's a system I voted no on when we first got it, so I'm
Gotcha.
just being consistent until it's
Makes sense.
paid for.
So we'll expect you same time next year?
Same time next year.
Got it, okay.
Anybody else in this section? Seeing none, carry on.
If I can now direct your attention to Vision 2030 Student Achievement. We have some curricula that we're asking you to approve on item number 1. You can find that on page 7. Items number 2 and 3, we have some memorandums of understanding, or in the second case, agreement with higher education institutions, Rider University and Middlesex County College. You can find those on pages 7 and 8. Items number 4 through 7 and number 9 on the addendum, approval of several co-curricular activities. You can find that again on page 8 and on the addendum. Number 8, approval of that same program that we just talked about, of Atia Conray to facilitate the IT Girls Codathon 2015 program at the high school from September 19th through October 10th. You can find that on pages 8 and 9. Oh, and that's it for student achievement. Any questions?
I have a question. On the memorandum of agreements that we have with colleges, who actually reads them and signs them? Where does that fall, that responsibility?
The one for Ryder, I sign, and Dr. Labby signs the one with Middlesex.
Question on the AP U.S. History 2 curricula. I noticed towards the end of the curricula that after the Cold War, we talk about using, it is not covered in our textbook, and we use supplementary materials. This may just be a timing issue. I thought we just purchased the new AP History textbooks. Was that US 1 or US 2?
I think we purchased them for both, if I'm not mistaken.
All right, so that may need to be upped, and I know the
Okay.
curricula was written over the summer, so
Right,
it's possible the two didn't sync up.
Okay.
But I noticed in that second half, we talk about anything post the Cold War is all supplemental, and I hope it's covered in our new textbooks.
Okay, and we, even if things are covered in the textbooks, we still always use
Right.
supplemental materials too, so. And the curriculum's actually designed so it's not specific to a textbook, that it's the curriculum and we use pieces from the textbook.
Okay.
Okay?
Any more questions? Okay, moving along to Vision 2030 governance. During our last meeting, on item number 1, we asked you to read the advertising, sponsorship, and commercial activities policy, as well as the regulation for student assessment, grading, and reporting for the first time. Tonight, we're asking you to approve those, that policy and that regulation for a second reading. Number 2, which can be found on page 9, we're asking you to submit the statement of assurance for use of paraprofessionals. That's an annual statement of assurance that we have to have your approval for and submit to the county. That's for the 2015-16 school year and can be found on page 9. Number 3, we're asking you to approve the 2016-17 school district calendar, and that can be found on page 9 as well. And number 4, we're asking you to approve the 2015-16 school district goals, the same goals that we presented during the last meeting, taking into consideration some of the suggestions, recommendations that I received. We're now asking you to formally approve and adopt those goals. The next slide here is the actual school district calendar in case you have any questions. But again, we incorporated your suggestions and recommendations with regard to the calendar. The calendar was also shared with the Sayreville Education Association and was given their stamp of approval as well. Any question on 2030 2030 governance?
I have a question on the goals. Since the goals mirror the merit goals,
Not to the fullest extent. There are some goals that are not within my merit bonus goals.
okay, so if I wanted to see something more specific in the merit goals that aren't on here, couldn't that be done?
Well,
Like,
it can be done, Mrs. Bacco, but I would have wanted that earlier before I sent it to the executive county superintendent, but I can go ahead and take into I can take your suggestions and incorporate that and send it to the executive county superintendent.
okay, I'll try to be more general then. Like, for example, when you have curriculum and instruction, like for the RTI program, you'll have like effective implementation. But for the block and the tag programs, you just put develop. So,
Correct.
like just developing something, I would like something a little bit more measurable.
Well,
per
because
se.
that is going to be measurable. I'm going, hopefully by the end of the year, if I do not develop an effective block schedule, then it didn't get accomplished. Last year, we developed a response to intervention methodology within our INRS programs. This year, we're implementing it. So the goal is for us to implement it effectively. We developed it last year, now it's our goal to implement it. So with regard to the block scheduling, the goal is to develop those block schedules for this year, and then the goal next year will be to effectively implement those schedules.
Okay, so, like, for example, you want to create a live web chat or electronic forum, which is great. But we also have our regular PIC meetings. So, but we have a very poor attendance. So if you wanted to measure, like, to me, creating this forum is great, but if nobody participates, it's not so great.
Correct.
So I guess I was just looking for something a little more measurable, like just creating this forum, if nobody uses it, it's not very effective,
Right.
I guess.
And there's a couple of different strategies given there, too. I mean, there's the creation of a district newsletter, okay, that coincides with the head of the class. The head of the class is more of a Board of Education newsletter. This would be a district newsletter that's going to report to the constituents of the district on the major initiatives and programs that are going on. So that's one way. There's obviously some strategies there for communicating with parents via PTO meetings and teachers via faculty meetings. The web chat was just an idea from another board member that I received. It's an out-of-the-box idea, but it's another way to try to get the message out to people and to give people an opportunity to provide feedback as well as ask questions and present concerns in a manner in which they might feel comfortable doing it anonymously.
Right. No, I think it's a good idea. I just, if nobody participates, do we have, like, is there a strategy other than just to create it?
And that was the whole
Because I know
goal.
the
That's
PIC
why-
meetings haven't been all that successful.
Right, and that's why I listed several different ways. There's 5 different ways to improve the communication there. So that, we're hoping that it will reach out to people, but yeah, there is a chance that that won't be effective. And again, if it's not effective, then, you'll reflect that when you go ahead and measure my ability to accomplish my goals.
Okay, so the measurement's going to be on the effectiveness, not on the creation?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, you Board of Education members are the ones that when you complete my evaluation, you judge whether you feel I met that criteria or not. And if you feel that the standard for that goes beyond creation and it goes into effective usage, then that's how you'll go ahead and reflect your assessment of my performance.
So I could do that even though those words aren't written here?
Yes.
You're saying?
You can do whatever you want.
Thank you.
Oh, don't say that.
Okay.
Any other questions?
About the calendar.
There's a calendar question.
Calendar.
No, we got this.
All right, so the week of November 6th.
Yes.
7th. The students are coming to school that one day, the 7th, and then they're off the rest of that week.
Correct.
I'm kind of wondering how many students are going to be coming in that day, and if we should give the whole week off.
That is a consideration. The only problem is now you're moving this back here in worst case scenario, that last day here.
Right. Well, then I was looking at, and I always liked having Easter Monday off, but maybe coming to school on Easter Monday instead.
And that's something that we can consider, but I bring your attention, we talked about this too. There's a great deal, look at February and March for our kids. That's a long period of time without a break.
Right, but it's one day after having 5 days off. It's one more day
Sure.
in April.
Sure.
So I just wanted to throw it out there. I would like to see us come back to school on the 17th of April and have off the 7th of November.
Well, it's in there as a,
So you want,
the
you
last,
don't, I think a
as a
lot of
take back.
people, though, go away for Easter, and that's why we do Easter Monday when we have off the week before Easter.
So you want off on November 7th?
Well, right, because that's the only
Right.
day that the students are
Right.
coming in that week.
Right, I brought that up in the last meeting.
Just a note, too, the 8th is a staff and service day.
Right.
As of now.
Correct.
The teachers would be here.
Right,
Right,
that
but the
day.
students will.
And we did consider taking this day, the 9th, and making it a school day. But again, after the day off our kids have on the 7th, we run almost the same problem in which, on the 8th, we may have a low turnout of students on the 9th.
Well, could you have the staff service day on the 9th and have the students come the 7th and the 8th?
The staff in-service day has traditionally been on Election Day so that we
Oh,
can
because
close the
it's election
schools
day.
for
Okay,
voting
no,
purposes.
You're right. I didn't know it was election day.
The other thing, this is going to be a big election.
Right.
So, some people may be up late at night on the 8th. Just kidding, I don't know.
Am I missing something?
Humor.
Humor. Poor attempt, Mr. McEnroe, sorry.
Does anybody else have a concern about
I
the
mean, if
7th?
if these are changes that the Board of Education wants to make, if you feel that you want to change some of these dates, we can table the calendar.
Well, my only concern is, due to the last year with the snow days, I think as many days as we can get in before we get into that area is better, you know? That's just my feeling.
And with this calendar, as we went over before, there are 3 days extra built into the calendar for snow days. So if we do not have any snow days, we'll count backwards in terms of taking those days away.
Understand?
We also build in 3 more contingency days where we'll take away days off if we go beyond the 3 days. So there are 6 days built in as a contingency for the snow days. Hopefully, for the love of goodness, we don't have to do that. So, again, if this is something that, Mr. McEnone, you feel that we want to table to discuss a little bit more, we usually like to get the calendar out to our parents.
Somebody wants to put a motion to table, we'll entertain a motion to table, but
Can we discuss it now? I mean, I said my opinion on it. If nobody else feels the same way, then we could just move on.
No, Mrs. Treb, I see your point. Yeah, I just don't know if it's any better or any worse taking the Monday after Easter. If we take that Monday and give Monday the 7th off, now we still got the staff coming in for an in-service day.
For 2 days. Oh, for 1 day.
For
right.
1 day. I mean, we
Right.
can move the in-service day back to Monday, but then, now again, for the staff, you still have the same issue. It's not a whole contiguous block off.
All right.
And I agree with the fact that March is an awfully long month.
Okay, so we'll just leave it at that, and whoever goes away that week, the students will just miss that day. Thank you.
Finally, moving on to Vision 2030 personnel. Unfortunately, we do have one resignation we're asking you to accept. Item number 1, page 9. Items number 2 and 3, we're asking you to retroactively approve our Power School Coordinator, as well as our district-wide phone service technician. You can find that on page 9. Item number 4, we're asking you to approve several leaves of absence and modification to some pre-existing leave of absences. That can be found on page 10. Numbers 5 and 7, we're asking you to approve stipends for our DECA advisor as well as our FBLA advisor. That can be found on page 10. Numbers 8 and 16, we're asking you to approve to hire 3 certificated staff members. And that can be found on pages 10 and 11, as well as on the addendum. Once again, those are items 8 and 16 on pages 10 and the addendum. I apologize for the spelling error with the addendum. Number 9, we're asking you to approve to hire 8 non-certificated staff members, and that can be found on page 11. Number 10, we're asking you to approve members to serve as Saturday detention supervisors. That can be found on page 12. Numbers 12 and 18, we're asking you to approve and appoint some lunchroom playground aides at the Arleth School and the Wilson School, and that's retroactive, effective September 3rd, 2015, and that can be found on page 12 as well as the addendum. We apologize; those were by error. They were not included in the last agenda, so we're asking you to retroactively approve them. Number 13, we're asking you to approve a co-op student at Sayreville War Memorial High School in the guidance department, as well as another co-op student in the high school, in the library at the high school. That can be found on page 12. Number 14, we're asking you to approve several certified substitutes. On page 13, you can find that. And number 15, we're asking you to approve professional days. You can find all of them on page 13. And finally, number 18, on the addendum, we're asking you to approve a speech and language specialist at the middle school, as well as a speech and language specialist for Project Before. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, excuse me. We're asking you to approve the transfer of a speech and language therapist from the middle school to Project Before. And as you can recall earlier, as one of the certificated staff members, there is a school speech and language therapist we're asking you to approve. That person will be going to the middle school, and the middle school speech and language therapist will be transferred to Project Before at the Sam Sell School. Any questions on Vision 2030 personnel?
I have a question. For the substitutes, did we get the new software up and running yet?
Ms. Reese?
Actually, it should be up, the last final run-through is Friday, this Friday, so it should be up and ready to go next week.
So as we hire these new substitutes, are they given instructions or how to use it and what they need to do?
Not at this point.
So what's the mechanism once it's up and running to explain to all the substitutes how to go about doing it?
We have everyone's email address that we got, so we have, we will be sending the actual instructions to them via email.
Via email. Does the software have like a push notification once a job is posted, an opening is posted? Does it go out to the people that are registered?
Yes.
By email? So if whoever does it in Sillover, when they know that a position's coming up, say tomorrow, will that notice go to all the substitutes
Yes.
that are enrolled?
Yes, it has categories, if it's certificated, if it's a para, if it's whatever.
So the software will actually, they
It'll
can
push
sign
it.
up for like a push notification?
Correct.
When something pops up, so they'll know ahead of time?
Correct.
So you don't have to keep checking and looking for,
The substitute teacher doesn't have to, or the sub doesn't have to keep checking.
yeah, you don't have to
Don't
keep
you?
checking the system every, hour. Like, how is it going to work? Like, how is a substitute going to see the job? Is there a certain time they're supposed to look? Does it have a push notification and says they've been posted? Is it a certain time of day? Like,
Or is it when it's entered?
yeah, like, or is it just random? Like, how is it, what's the system for it to work?
The system, it's going to go out, they have until 5 o'clock in the morning to respond, so it'll go out from the evening, it'll be just up. So they'll push, they'll be able to see it, but you'll be able to scroll and look and see if there's any availability, anything that you want, any school, and you'll be able to respond. The notifications will come from email, but you also have the opportunity to tell them you want it by phone, be it your home phone or your cell phone, in terms of the notifications as well. So once we know that all of our pieces are in and our timeframes are out, we're going to send out the instructions to the subs as well as to all of the staff here as well. Because they have to enter that they're going to be absent for the information to be pushed to all of the substitute pool for them to respond and say, I'm available. So there's going to be a time frame. It's going to vary by school where you can go through the system and say, I'll take the position. After that, if a person calls in after a certain point in time, the secretaries in the school will actually have to call and say, hey, somebody called in late, not going to be here.
So if you want a phone call notification, will it be like an electronic phone call, like
Right,
Sue
it will be
Kaprowski's
from
not going to call
ASAP.
you anymore?
Correct.
It's going to be an electronic phone call?
Right, you can have it email, you can have your cell phone, and you can have your home phone.
Okay, so will the jobs be posted as they are received? Like if a teacher calls in, 5 o'clock today and says, I will be out in 3 days, does that go right in at
It
that
goes
point
right
in
out.
time? It's instant?
Right. It goes out.
The teacher puts her own information in?
The teacher puts their own information in. The
Okay, and
teacher-
that will generate a phone call or a push notification
Correct.
to however the person
Correct.
asked for that to be
And
received?
you can request a specific.
And you
software
can,
you want.
correct, you can request a particular
And that would be pushed
teacher
out
for a
to that
particular time frame. It'll be for administrators, we're going to eventually have it for vacation days, personal days as well. It'll be the system that we kind of track our attendance overall.
So the person would actually even have the flexibility, say they only wanted a substitute in, say, elementary,
Correct.
they could only receive notices for that?
Absolutely. And you can also say, I want this person, if they've been with your class before, you can request as well.
Through the system, and it sends them an email.
Through the system? Okay.
Right.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
And the system also communicates with our SMARTS database for our employees, so that when a teacher is absent, it'll automatically
Update the
be
attendance.
updated into our SMARTS system.
For attendance.
So it's a good system. It's been around about 15 years, and the makers of the software have advanced the software, every year or every few years, and it's really gotten better. I remember when I worked in Edison, when they just came out with it, substitutes had to monitor the website, waiting for jobs, and they didn't pounce
Right.
on those jobs when they come out. And now they've graduated into those notification systems.
Okay, so, because I was just talking to someone, they said South Amboy uses it, and they don't get those notifications, so I just want to know if we were doing it.
Any other questions on personnel?
What kind of cost was that? That's awesome.
Mr. Glock?
Okay, sorry.
I want to say something around the 13,
I know what you're saying.
8 to $10,000 range?
Around 15,000, I think. It wasn't real expensive.
That's great, thank you.
It wasn't.
See how close I am? Ooh, I was well off. Oh, I was better with my 13. 18.
Still good,
Yeah,
It wasn't super expensive.
thank you.
I did say 18 first, yeah.
I heard you.
Nice try.
Everybody back here said I said 18.
Dr. Lab, just a question on a co-op student, and you probably don't have the answer for this here, but if we could take a look at if there's been an increase in the number of co-op students that we as a district are hiring, and if that's related to them having a desire to work in an educational environment. And the only reason I ask is because if it's related to them having a desire to work in an educational environment, I fully support it. If it's simply because it's an easier route or the jobs are simply available, we might be doing a better service for our students if we can try to get them placed if jobs are available externally, because oftentimes those jobs turn into things post-high school, whereas if they're not specifically interested in education, chances are a position here may not.
And I can answer that question. We did have that discussion earlier this year when we met. We do have a large number of kids that really want to work in the school district for a number of different reasons. However, we only have a certain budget line for these kids, so what we've done is we've really regulated and kind of, taken back some of the hours that we give so that we can give more kids an opportunity to work in the schools. Speaking technology-wise, we have a couple of kids working in the technology department because that's exactly what they want to do, one of which is volunteering. There we go. I mean, we have, this is what they want to do.
Okay.
So we're giving them that hands-on experience that they really want, and hopefully they're enjoying. Good.
Okay.
So, yeah, we have had a greater amount of interest in working in the district, and I do believe it's not just because it's an easier place to get a job. I think it's because there is a true desire to either work in the educational portion of our operation or the business portion of our operation.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure that it's where our students wanted to be.
I'm looking for a superintendent intern. Anything else for Vision 2030 personnel? Okay, Mr. McEnroe, thank you.
I wanted to mention this earlier, but I wanted to thank our principals, directors, and supervisors that are here tonight. Appreciate you showing up because the first meeting after school opening is always good to have you here in case there are any questions or concerns that are building specific, so thank you. At this time, does anybody have any other questions on agenda items? If not, I will open up for the public for any questions, comments on agenda items. I will open up again to the public for any business that may come before this board. Anybody from the public?
John Bovary, 1210 Harbor Club Drive. And I'll preface this by, hopefully nobody takes anything personal here, okay? It could be anybody sitting in that chair, I'd say the same thing, right? I will apply for that superintendent intern position. Okay? Calendar, okay? Just wanted to add something to it. This means nothing to me, the calendar. I don't have kids, and Mary don't complain, so don't worry about it, right? But we went through this. Mike, Phyllis, Kevin, you were on the board. Mike and Phyllis, we had kids. Jill, we had kids. I don't think you were on the board yet. Mitty, you were here. And Lucy, you were in the union at the time. I think it was 2005, 2006. Same situation occurred, okay? Veterans Day within the same week of Election Day celebrated. We shut it down for the whole week by moving Easter Monday, okay, back into November, and the SEA found someplace else to do their third in-service day, and I don't know how that magic works, okay, right? And one of the reasons was of the inefficiency, and this goes to, Mitty will remember this, the inefficiency during winter heating season to open up buildings for one day, okay? After they're shut down for the weekend, to restart the boilers and all that sort of stuff. So there was some perceived savings as well. I don't think we ever quantified them, okay? But it made a lot of sense, okay? And I'll be honest with you, I would have mentioned this last week. I went home telling my wife, your schedule's all screwed up this year. I thought this was this year's calendar. I wasn't even paying attention to this meeting, right? I would have brought it up then. Isn't this kind of early? Or maybe there's a deadline I don't know about, okay? Can it be tabled? And has staff, parents, and students, other than the one big mouth that comes to the microphone and 9, 10 people up there, are we asking parents, students, if they want a whole week off in November to give up Easter Monday? I don't know who we're asking what they want.
Not giving up Easter Monday.
Okay, and the union?
They have it. Easter Monday is off on this That's the 17th, that's Easter Monday.
Yeah, I want to give it up, have the whole week in November.
Jill's proposal.
You're talking about
Oh,
swapping.
but it hasn't been tabled, so therefore the calendar is going to proceed as you see it.
Yeah, well, I'm asking to table it and to get input from the public.
Yeah, when you mentioned about the efficiency of the weather, I remember that conversation, that was a while back, but...
It was 2005, 2006.
Right, that's a while back.
It's yesterday to some people.
We still have staff coming in on the 8th, which is that Tuesday, so it's really 2 days.
They moved that in-service day that
Yeah,
year. Right? I'm just saying it's doable, and if there's no deadline like next week to approve this calendar, I don't see the rush. Okay?
I have no issue if somebody wants to revisit. I don't have
Right,
a
no
dog-
problem, you know.
I don't have a dog in the fight, so...
No problem. All right, I just wanted to remind everybody what we went through
Sure,
about
I
10
remember.
years ago.
Now that you mention it.
Can I ask you, well, can I follow up on that? About, the SCA was questioned about it, and they were, it was presented to the SCA, and they were satisfied with that? Like, they didn't have a problem?
Correct.
Go ahead, John, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Switching topics quickly. Mike, thank you for addressing the handouts on the slide presentations for HIB and the budget calendar. Folks, this isn't the first time
I know,
we've
I
had
agree.
this issue.
I agree.
Thank
It's
you.
on me now, John.
No problem, it's on everybody, right?
Gotcha.
If it occurs again, could you please defer the presentation to the next meeting so we can follow along the numbers, okay? Or consider deferring it.
Won't happen again, John.
And can we get these documents put up on the web?
Sure.
That HIB book, the HIB slide, and the budget calendar. Right?
Oh, the hip slide's not there either.
Good, okay, right? Following up on Phyllis's discussion, okay? Have we approved Dr. Labby's merit bonuses for this 15-16 school year?
No.
No.
Okay,
They're waiting for them to come back from the county superintendent.
Gotcha.
Because if they're not approved at that level, it's a moot point.
no problem. And we understand there's some degree of connection to the district goals, but not an exclusive. Got it.
Yes.
We haven't got to that point yet.
Nope.
right? That's good, thank you.
Thank you, John. Anyone else about agenda items only? If not, I'll close the agenda portion to the public, and I'll entertain a motion to file and accept the superintendent's report.
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
Need a roll call vote?
The second was Mr. Walsh.
Yeah.
Mr. Bowker.
Yes.
Mrs. Bacco.
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom.
Yes.
Mr. Brzezinski.
Yes.
Mr. Syed.
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto.
Yes.
Mrs. Trapp.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Mr. McEnon.
Yes. Have there been any meetings, committee meetings, since the last meeting? I know.
Personnel Committee met earlier today, and actually our meeting focused a lot on the ASOP, which Ms. Bacco just brought up. And just to add on top of that too, I know there will be some overlap where the old procedures will stay in effect, just, until everything's wrinkled out, but we're looking forward to that starting.
And Finance and Infrastructure met last week.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, we just had, Sherry Kompowski reported that all summer cleaning was completed prior to start of school, and a lot of painting was done around the schools. And Dennis Pantiano reported that the high school gym floor was done. The high school roof should be done by the end of September. The high school bleacher job was done, but we know that already. All of the heating issues, they found that there were some missing balancing valves in the bathrooms, and that should solve the problems of last winter. And on the finance side, we discussed the 2016-17 budget calendar.
Speaking about the budget calendar, Ms. Backer, you sent an email about a December 22nd meeting. I didn't see that on the calendar.
No, because that's a curriculum committee meeting, December 22nd, not a
Well,
finance
it's a
meeting.
technology budget, okay. All right, so you may have to send an email to me again then, because I deleted it. All right. Okay, anybody else? All right,
We discussed it too, before I sent the email, so.
okay. That's too far in advance for me. Mr. Sayak, delegate to New Jersey School Board Association.
A few items on Thursday, September 17th. The Senate Agricultural Committee was supposed to meet to discuss a markup of the child nutrition reauthorization, which was hopefully going to fix some of the issues with school lunch. That has been postponed, and it's unclear when it will be rescheduled. The current legislation expires September 30th. If it expires September 30th, things will basically proceed as they always have in the absence of any type of reauthorization. But we were hoping that Congress would take that up and fix some of the challenges that we've had with brown Rice Krispie treats and other issues surrounding our school lunch program. One of our directors from NSBA, one of our Board of Director members, testified before the Senate regarding some of the challenges that the health regulations have provided in his district. In addition, I'm serving on a committee with New Jersey School Boards to completely overhaul and redesign the new board member orientation program, which most of us participated in the weekend conference. That program's been largely unchanged for the last 20, 25 years, and where it's time for a refresh and a complete overhaul. So I'm on a subcommittee that is leading a relook at the student achievement piece. And then finally, I'm looking and considering options for a theme for my potential presidency of National School Boards Association. I go before the nominating committee in January for the president-elect position. If I secure that position, then, as the title says, president-elect, the following year, I automatically move forward. I was looking at the concept of Vision 2030 as a national theme, which would, based upon the time I get into office in 2017, mean the kindergartners of 2017 graduating high school in 2030. We looked at a 2035 concept, but that involves pre-K and the graduation at the college level, and we thought that may not be the best message with regard to the fact that most school board members' circle of influence and authority is over the K-12 program. And if we go out with that, the K-12 piece would resonate well within the influence that school board members have. So the reason I bring that up is because I do have until the end of January before I go to the nominating committee with a vision for an SBA. If anyone has any suggestions of a theme for a national presidency, I would welcome your input.
You need a campaign manager?
Sure. Are you interested?
No.
Oh, okay.
I think you should go with the parade of titles.
Parade of titles.
I like that one. He has more titles than anybody I know.
And that concludes my report.
Well, good luck in that endeavor.
Thank you.
I don't have my glasses. What number is that again?
6,025.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, on the discussion, I just had one thing. Dr. Labby had sent out to us, a couple of days ago, the enrollment figures for the first 3 days of school. I don't know if anybody actually looked at those numbers. What I'm looking at here is our enrollment on the last day of school in June, and it looks like we have an increase of 120
Correct.
students, and it's broken out by school, and I think the brunt of that went to the UES and the high school, I think, based on this.
Well, and it's a little misleading, too, because we did have to shift kids from the Truman School
Yeah, I know.
over to
Yeah,
Arlington.
I took that into consideration when I saw the
No, I know.
difference in numbers. So that, I remember when I first came on the board, we were at about 5,900. And now we're well over 6,000. This is something that we need to look at now and not a couple of years down the road when we don't have enough classrooms. And I know we had this discussion a while back when we were looking at what we were going to do with Slover, but if you just look around town right now, Lemire is not built out, Town Lake is not built out. There's a development on Route 35 and Old Spy Road that's about halfway up, that used to be 55 and older, but was changed to market value, so that will produce a number of kids. And then, as you know, the National Lead, or what they call the Point, which is a 10-year project, is supposed to have 2,000 residences. If anybody was at a planning board meeting about a month ago, the developer presented us their projection on what the school-age population would be generated from 2,000 units, and they were using data from our school district from 2004-05. So we invalidated that and got them good data, and we're looking to see what those numbers are going to be. But I know we have some room in, perhaps, is it Arliff, maybe the UES, but we need to have a long-range plan to take a look at this enrollment. And because I was surprised to see this money, Penny.
And I don't believe Arliff has any more room.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the substandard applications that were submitted to Mr. DeAndrea.
Right, for facilities.
Those are submitted because we're using things that shouldn't be classrooms as classrooms. So our buildings ergonomically are growing tighter and tighter with each year, and there's going to come a point where we just can't be as creative as we have been in terms of transforming rooms that weren't meant to be classrooms into classrooms.
Well, we need to look at now, and maybe we need to revisit what we talked about a year and a half ago, Emilio, with blow the dust off of the Slover plan. I know that Ms. Bacco likes talking about that, but the other thing is that this, I think, supports our argument with the pilot program and how that's going to negatively affect us as well.
Well, and the other thing too, I mean, we can talk about room space and building structures, but you need need people.
Yeah,
We need teachers, we need people to clean the rooms, and doing that with all these extra students, but not being able to increase our tax levy by more than 2% is becoming more and more difficult.
Because we took the kids out of Truman and moved them to where, Arlith?
We took about half of them and moved them to Wilson.
No.
Oh, no, Eisenhower, right?
Right, I
And then
think
Arlith.
7 went to Eisenhower and about 12 went to Arlith.
Right, so they're pretty much at capacity.
So it's 19 kids there. So you look at Truman, even though it shows Truman dropped 20 students, I believe, on that
15.
list. 15,
Right,
where
just moved them out.
they really gained, yeah.
But they gained 26 and
So,
up.
and again, with more students, you have to hire more teachers, particularly if you have children with disabilities, too. There are pretty strict, student per teacher ratios with regard to that are far lower than a standard classroom. So all of these equal greater expenses, and, these are things that hopefully we'll be able to share with the Borough Council when it comes to all the building projects that are going on.
No, but we've been talking about this at least for the last 3-4 years. And, sometimes I feel like we're ineffective debating society. We keep talking about it, but we're not doing anything, and the time is not when the point is starting to get built out, and then we say, as you know, these things are long lead items. We got to be thinking 10 years in advance and not a year in advance, because we can't turn around that fast. So we need to take a look at this. Now, I will get, what I think the projections are coming out of the point, but I'll tell you, with 2,000 units and a number of those 2- and 3-bedroom homes, you're going to generate, my best guess is 500 to 600 more kids. And where are they going to school? And I don't know how that's going to break up in ages, whether that's going to be elementary, it's going to be high school, but we can't handle that. When we're talking about it now, but we got to do something now and not wait until 10 years and then say, what do we put trailers back in the parking lots? I don't think we want to do that.
Mr. Magino, what we've done in the past, which has been successful, because it generated, I think, this building, it generated the Arlith addition, it generated the UES, is we formed, and I think this would be if we form it, Blue Ribbon 5, which is a committee of a couple of board members, some faculty, some parents, some community members, superintendent of schools, to look at these issues and talk about what are the best recommendations for a go-forward plan. And it starts that buy-in process for whatever we eventually decide. I don't know if the board wants to go in that direction, but that's what we've done in the past.
Anybody comments?
We have to do something. We have to start approving pilot programs. That's what we have to do.
Well, I think that's the best way to get the ball, start rolling, and if you form that committee, Kevin, I'll serve on it.
Well, the president would have to appoint the committee.
Oh, well. I gave you the credit because it was your idea, but I
Mr. Walsh is going to chair that committee.
I didn't say that.
But I'm serious. I think we need to be proactive and not reactive at the last minute. It always bothered me that we have a school that we're not utilizing, and that to me seems the practical approach, is to take what we have versus building something else. And if you were on the board when we built this very room, I don't think we want to go through that again. So I think we need to resurrect that discussion about Slover, about possibly Eisenhower.
Because our other solution, I think, was what? UES being 3 to 5?
Well, I mean, we talked about a number of different things, but, we've got about 180 kids now in our preschool program, which is 3 times the size of what it was in the past, and a lot of that is because we have a lot of parents that want their children in our preschool programs. They're paying tuition for it. So we have 2 classrooms being used right now in Slover for that very purpose. And believe it or not, we have no seats available at all in our preschool program. We've used up all of our seats. So the problem with going toward that plan that we talked about in terms of having 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade at Samsel is, now where do we put our preschool kids? We disperse them to the schools, hoping that they're going to take up the space that the 3rd graders left, but that may not actually be the case. So we're kind of just moving it around and not solving the problem. When it comes to Slover, you've got to look at the fact of, Mr. DeAndrea went over this, the cost that it would take to get that building up to standard. Is that a cost that we want to incur?
What was that? Could you remember from the report? And it was about 3 years ago we got that briefing. I still have the report, but not with me.
Over $1 million.
I'm gonna say it might have been close to 10 million at
Yeah, I
that
mean,
point
Yeah,
in time.
that sounds right.
Quite a lot of money.
It was like, it was over, it was 10, yeah, but
It was
It
around
was-
10.
I
And that
think
was
we were
just to
leaning
bring it
towards
up to
just doing a
code, right?
tear down, replace for a little bit more and getting
Right.
state-of-the-art green building versus.
Yeah, and it all depended on the architect broke it into several different components. He broke it into priority one, priority two.
I've got the report with me, I've been
I mean,
carrying it.
And Mr. McEnroe, you're right on the money when you talk about immediacy. I mean, if you look at the numbers for Eisenhower right now, they're pretty close to being at capacity, especially with the changes that we made. And the construction on Old Spire Road, that could produce about 50 children, and those children would go to Eisenhower.
And that development particularly was a development for 55 and older when it was approved to be built. And then it was changed to, there will be some 3-bedroom units there. So that's going to generate kids.
Yeah.
But that's small potatoes compared to what the Point is going to bring in.
Correct.
Okay, so, all right. Then we will establish that committee, and let me get some information together so we have something, at least a master plan from the borough and those types of things, so we can at least not waste our time, so. All right, any other discussion on anything?
I have something.
No.
We
Mrs. Becker?
discussed. Well, before we move to discussion, special committee reports, just in case you didn't get this email, the pilot committee meeting is the 21st.
I did get that.
Okay. Just wanna
You
make
sent it to
sure.
me because you want me to go.
It's your choice. Just want to make sure you didn't delete it.
I was hoping to go to another meeting.
I have one thing for discussion. I had a request from the Eisenhower School. There was a music teacher, Sharon Puglisi, who passed away this summer, and she was a music teacher there for over 40 years, and they would like to rename the music room after her and put a plaque outside the room. So she was, I'll tell you, she lived in Sayreville for like 45 years. I didn't know her, but, and the request also asked us if we would purchase a plaque. So I know the last time we had this discussion about naming something, it didn't go well. This is just for one room for their teacher.
Everybody's looking down at me.
No, I just need, would need board approval
Right.
to do that.
So is there a procedure that we have established? for
We
following?
have none.
No, there's no policy on
No.
that.
There is no policy?
No.
No.
Probably be a good opportunity to develop one.
Yeah, I mean, most school districts have, I've seen, a policy for naming, there's typically a petition that starts.
They have a petition, I don't have it here, but there was a petition done by the staff.
Okay, maybe an ad hoc committee is formed by the board president to consider it, and, there's a standard for consideration that shouldn't be considered for the moment, but for the future of that type of thing. So the policy would be certainly a good idea. But I do recall, Mr. McEnroe, at some point that this district considered naming the music wing of this building at some meeting I was at, and I remember there was a process in place at that time, but I don't
Yes,
exactly
It was
remember.
voted down 5-4. There was no process, it was just voted down.
Okay. Well, maybe good idea for the board. If you need help with that, I'm happy to help.
I think Mr. Aguilar wants to add to the conversation, so Mr. Aguilar, if you can come up.
I think, good evening. I think it's a little less than that. They don't want to rename the suite, they just want a commemorative plaque that says her name and the music suite. There's the music suite and the teacher's name.
Oh, so they don't want to name the room after her? That was what I
No,
understood.
because one of the discussions that I had with the teachers is that it's been attempted before and there's a long process. But if we put a commemorative plaque, which in memory of, I think it's usually goes a little easier to with that. And that, I think, makes it a little easier. I don't know, Jonathan, if it makes it a little easier, but.
You're not naming it after someone, you just bring a plaque up. Arguably, that could be even done with a
Mr.
principal.
McEnroe, could we perhaps have, through Dr. Labby, through Dr. Aguilar, the PTA, send a formal request to the board of exactly what they want so that we're 100% clear.
Well, it wasn't the...
Or the staff? It's the staff?
Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
All right, not a problem. And
Does
thanks for the
anybody
doctor.
have issue? I mean,
I think it's a
Well,
wonderful
before-
idea.
yeah.
discuss it now and not wait
Yeah.
until it's proposed, and then we have an issue with it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's just a plaque,
The
I
only
mean,
thing
I was
that,
under the impression it
only
was
thing, the
named-
thing that Jonathan mentioned earlier about making the music suite, that was an attempt to get money. That was, I mean, let's call it what it was, okay? This is different, and the only issue, that we need to have a policy, because I don't have a problem with this, someone that's dedicated their life and those types of things to educating our kids in the building, but you will have future requests, and that's what you need to take into consideration.
Right.
I know when they, years and years ago, with the football field, it's named War Memorial after all the veterans that come to this school and served and are not with us anymore. And it was a group of people, not one individual person. That's the only concern that we need to be aware of, that if we do this, then future requests, how do you deny? And that's the only thing I think we need to consider, so.
I think maybe we run it through policy, and, because even with the plaque, while I have no issue with the plaque, I know the request was that the board fund it. We have a lot of staff members, and if we start getting a lot of plaque requests, I don't know where this would go from here. Again, I'm thinking for the future, long-term.
It's a plaque. So, do school boards have, I mean, school boards has a policy branch. Certainly it would have
Oh,
policy.
I can get a sample policy on, naming or, whatever, yes.
It
Well,
shouldn't be
yeah, I'm
one
sure the
parent.
plaque isn't expensive, so even if we don't pay for the plaque, I don't think it's going to break the deal. I think it's just a matter of, do we want to do this? Do we want to entertain it? I don't want to put a bunch of people through a lot of work if it's not, if it's not going to go anywhere.
Well, the issue, when you look at things, we named a library in this building.
Right, but,
15 years ago.
So, I mean, you got to be consistent, we got to be fair, and
And we didn't name the suite for Bon Jovi.
right,
So-
I didn't mention any name.
right.
I mean, Don.
But I think that's something we can revisit.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think this is a valid request.
I know there's some new people on the
It
board. since
requires
then.
some thought, and,
I think maybe we should, I mean, if it's just a plaque, I don't think it requires a big policy or anything complicated.
I have no issue with a plaque.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't think we would need a policy if some teachers
No,
want to put a plaque.
and as I
up.
mentioned, I think a plaque arguably would be just done by the building principal. I mean, that's one of those
Yeah,
things.
why
could
do we
be-
need to prove it?
Yeah,
Right.
so then, if
But
it's
it-
not to name the room, then.
Where naming rights, though, obviously brings all kinds of other issues associated with it, including, obviously not this particular woman, doesn't sound like, but, controversial figures, for example, may have come through here, and there could be a difference of opinion as to whether they deserve that type of honor, so those types of things.
Yeah, but I don't want the board to be the one to make that determination. That's not fair.
The way that these policies work is it's not a board determination, it's typically a community and board determination through a committee that would be assigned by the board. That's the way the policies I've seen read.
We love these committees.
Yeah, like, do we want to create a committee for a plaque?
So if there-
No, I'm talking about the policy, the naming rights.
Well, the question,
Make this
I think,
complicated.
we owe Mr. Aguiles is, does the board need to approve they want to put up a plaque? I don't see.
Do we need to do that?
Do we need to?
If it's
approve?
just a plaque? No. So if Mr. Aguiles wants, and his staff wants to put up a plaque, it's okay?
Yes,
We don't
yes.
need to do anything. It would only be if they wanted to name the room.
Correct.
Okay?
Or if they want us to buy the plaque, which I think they did ask too.
Yeah, but
Which
I don't.
I'll donate.
I don't think
Yeah, I'll
that's going to be a deal
contribute. I'll
breaker.
Contribute.
Yeah,
$5 each.
We're solving problems today, Mr. Aguiles.
sounds good to me.
All right, sir, thank you. Anybody else have anything for discussion? for-
Well, Mr. Aguiles was up, I just want to give a shout out to him. He wrote a beautiful letter for
He did.
9/11
He did.
that was recognized by a great deal of people, so great job, Mr. Aguiles.
Could we get a copy of that?
No. Sure, I'm sure Mr. Aguiles will provide you with that letter.
Thank you. The only other item I have is, we've traditionally done in either September or October, Back to School for Legislators Day, where we've invited the board has come in, we've invited the town council, we've invited our state senators and assembly people. I'd like to know if the board's interested in rinsing and repeating.
When is that?
We scheduled at the staff's convenience.
We didn't have Lewis here to remind you.
No.
He was making sure you're on your toes last year with that.
Anybody have any problem with that? Okay, Chris.
Okay, so we can work with Mr. Gentile.
Anything else? If not, I'll open up for the public. If you have any concerns about any business that may come before this board, please come up, state your name and address for the record. Anybody?
Hi, Allison Hornbeck, 7 Driftwood Drive. I think my daughter was in first grade when I first started talking about Eisenhower and the overcrowding. She's in 7th grade.
I remember.
So that's how long it's been going on. And at this rate, she'll be graduated, and my son will be graduated. But question, the preschool, is that mandatory? Is that by law that we provide preschool?
Only to preschool children with disabilities.
So everybody that is at the UES, they all have,
No, that is open to, in our integrated preschool program, that's open to tuition-based children as well.
so does the tuition that you take in pay for the salary, the busing, everything?
It goes into our self-sustained enterprise account. It's basically revenue to the district.
Okay, so if it's not mandated by law, and I can only say this because I don't have preschool kids anymore, I'll probably get things thrown at me, why do we do it? If we need the room, then why do we have it? There are other preschool, my kids went to Kennedy Park with Mrs. E, and they're just fine.
Currently, we're basically capitalizing on economies of scales. The classrooms are already being used for our preschool classes, so what we're doing is we're adding 6 to 8 children into those classrooms. The Slover, we do have about 60 kids over at the Slover School, but the other 120 kids, about 70 to 75 of those kids are preschool children with disabilities. So what we do is, we have the teacher, we have the classroom, we fill up the rest of that classroom with children that do not have disabilities. So it's our way of generating revenue, but also it's our way of getting more of our children into our schools to be with our teachers who we feel are the absolute very best at a very early age. When it comes to developing these children, the sooner we can get, so to speak, our hands on them, the absolute better for them. So, it's our goal to try to get as many preschoolers into our school district as possible. And right now, we've got about a third of our 3- and 4-year-olds in our school district, so that we're already beginning to prepare them for kindergarten. And if you talk to any of our kindergarten teachers, they recognize right away the children that have been in our Project Before Preschool program because they come in so prepared. So it's educationally based, but it also generates revenue for the district.
But if it's not mandated, if they're not special needs, or if they don't need, why do we, if we need the room for our kindergartners and our first graders and our,
But we're only talking about 3 classrooms. 3 classrooms at Samsel.
Yeah,
where
but you
if
go
we
over
didn't
to
have that-
Truman and you ask them what a difference 3 classrooms would make.
But they're not
No,
at
it's
Truman, they're at Samsel.
But I'm just saying if you were to move things around. I'm just saying, because we've been talking about trying to do something with this overcrowding. I've been for 6 years, and I'm sure it goes back much farther than that, but nothing's gotten done.
And unfortunately,
Because there's no money.
the count that we're talking about, the 120 additional students this year, that doesn't include preschool kids. That's not preschool kids. So
Right.
these are kindergarten through 12th grade children. And what Mr. McEnone is bringing to light is the fact that, we're talking with this new construction, not just having 3 classrooms, having an entire school because of
Right.
all the children that these construction projects are going to bring to the district.
Now, pre-K is only
It's got to
at
start
the,
somewhere.
at the SAMSL. That's when we have pre-K.
We have, there are 6, 7, 8, there are 11 classrooms over at SAMSO, and not classrooms, but classes. There are actually 8 classes, but we have 3 half-day programs.
But SAMSL's only school pre-K.
Yeah, well, Salover too. Salover, we have 3- and 4-year-olds not integrated with children with disabilities.
Right.
So we have about 60 to 65 kids over at Salover, and about 120 kids over at SAMSO. And we have talked about moving those 3rd graders from our elementary schools over to SAMSO, but we're going to have to put those preschoolers in the elementary school.
Yeah, I think Ms. Humbeck, I remember when she was on the PTO at Eisenhower, she discussed it, and I think your question is, if we need those rooms, are we not going to put K through 1 kids in there when we have a preschool that's not required? We're not at that point yet. But obviously, when we get to that point, we have to prioritize, and we understand
Right,
that.
I would hope that the
Sure, of
priority would
course.
be for, the school-age children, but we've been there for forever. It's,
I know.
it's just, it's
You
frustrating.
make a great point.
It's, it's just frustrating. But Carol will be graduating soon, so it's all good.
Anybody else from the public?
Hi, Lisa Reback, 7 Charles Street. I think a couple years ago, I think we had a study on solar panels or something. I don't recall the outcome of that, if anybody remembers. I was wondering, I know money's tight, and we actually, my house, we put solar panels on the roof, and we're saving like $200 a month. Our house is entirely electric, so. So I didn't know if maybe we could.
Yeah, Mr. DeAndrea is our.
Several years ago, when the board did look at it, they were strictly looking at the purchase of the solar panels and the SRECs, that you sell the solar panels, we're going to fund most of the project, but by the time we were going out to bid and ready for that, the SRECs really bottomed out, and they still have been there. I have met with a gentleman that provides a power purchase agreement, so I've already started some of those discussions, but it's something that you have to start planning and looking at. And now that we have basically all of our buildings with new roofs, the potential is there. And I concur. My solar system was just turned on in my home, and it's amazing to see how much power I'm producing versus how much I'm using. So
You
I'm
might be
looking
as bad
forward
as
to-
my husband.
I'm looking forward to my first bill to see what my savings are. So the potential is there. It takes a lot of work. You have to prepare very specific specifications that you have to go out with to ensure that you're getting the best price and how long you're going to do the agreement for. So there's a lot that is involved, but we have already started the process.
But there's a lease payment associated with the panels that you have to subtract from your savings.
Exactly, and that's where the power purchase agreement, so it depends on when you go out to bid, you're comparing your current electrical rates versus what the bid comes in as to the rates that you pay.
The only way to make this advantageous financially is actually purchase the panels and own them, so you can sell at net metering costs back to the power company.
Again, but then that takes a long-term capital financing and referendum and
Oh, yeah,
things of
because
that
the
nature.
ridiculous prices for a house is about $30,000 if you buy them. And it's that way because they want you to lease them, because it's more beneficial, because they're benefiting from the power return.
And I can tell you from personal experience, it's a dollar difference. If either you're paying, in my case, PSE&G, 19 cents for a kilowatt versus the power purchase agreement, which I signed, which was around 14 cents. But you still always need PSE&G, JCP&L, because you're always in need of power at some point in time. I mean, it's quite remarkable when you look at the programs that they offer.
Well, you're never off the grid, and you're always on.
You're always on the grid.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? JB?
Those 120 students, can you give us the breakdown by school, please, sir?
Yeah, I can tell you the net gain from each school. Arlith gained 22, Eisenhower 12. Truman had a reduction, but we moved kids out of there, I thought, right? That's why that is. 16 increase in Wilson, 49 at the upper elementary school, 17 at the middle school, and 28 at the high school. That totals up to 120, excuse me. Any other questions? If not, I will close the portion, and I will take a motion for adjournment.
So move. Second.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.